evening, everybody. Bill asked me to make the introduction, and it's not something that I'm used to doing, but I was delighted that he asked me to do it. Bill and I met 50 years ago at Cal Berkeley in comparative literature class 1B, in the company of Don Quixote, Moby Dick, and other startling characters. Among them, Robert Del Tredici, our TA, who drew brilliant illustrations of these and other books on the reading list. And since then, literature has been one of the enduring threads weaving our friendship. That year, we both also worked at the main library as book pagers. When Bill was assigned to fetch a slim volume of Kenneth Patchen's or Bertolt Brecht's poems from a shelf on Tier 6, he returned promptly with the order to the checkout desk, while I was easily seduced and made a habit of stopping the elevator for several minutes or squatting on the narrow steel floor beneath the shelf to savor a passage of wonder and irony. Bill continued to work at the library well after I was summarily fired. Before he left Berkeley for Willits, I visited Bill and Judith and their family at their house on Bonita Street, where I had the pleasure of meeting his mother. And I had discovered a South African poet named Ingrid Jonker and shared my library edition with Bill. One day on Bonita Street, he presented me with a beautiful copy of her selected poems. I still have it. As he settled in on East Side Road in Willits, Bill sent me poems. They told of deep attachments to his family, to the land, of his reverence, doubts, and sometimes rage at the system which paralleled our private odysseys. For we shared a visceral memory of the decade-long American war in Southeast Asia, of its unending lies and cruelty. That experience left us feeling conscience-bound to question power and militarism, and when necessary, to resist it with action. Over the years, he sent more of his writing in cassette tape recordings of Wild Sage radio programs, Christmas cards, and much later in the form of his online book, The Poetry and Thought of W.J. Ray. It's a very rich multimedia volume, though the title is a little bland. I saw Bill experiment as a poet, explore and grow. He honored the historical honor of baseball, sang his own versions of music of many continents. A quiet adoration became apparent as well for the goddess of the funny bone. It was that devotion that led him to ask some rather pointed questions, such as, is a jaybird naked? Will we be reborn as car nations? And most intriguing, given his recent and passionate scholarship about the Earl of Oxford as the true author of what we know as the Shakespeare canon, are oxys morons? There are other commonalities in our lives, our struggles with the post office bureaucracy. His, after many years, leading to a landmark court victory against workplace abuse. Mine, leading to the manuscript 70 Snowbound Pigs about the Oakland post office loading dock. We've both engaged in anti-nuclear direct action. He committed civil disobedience at Livermore Labs in the 1980s, and I have been vigiling weekly in Berkeley for decades against UC's management of the nuclear weapons labs. There is also our common identity as Jews, one which we've interpreted in different ways, but always with mutual understanding. He has deeply engaged religious ritual, including the hands-on and almost lost service of the burial society. I felt compelled to confront the Israeli occupation of Palestine. In 1985, Bill organized an art and poetry evening at which we read together at the Mendocino County Museum. It was for me a memorable event for which I am ever grateful. He introduced me that night to a room full of strangers. Now, surrounded by his friends, it is my great pleasure to return the favor. Please give it up for Bill Ray.
Well, I'm humbled by that introduction and also by the many friends here whom I've known from young to growing age. And I'm particularly honored by the presence of my daughter and her partner. Avra has become the spiritual leader of our family. She said when she was just a young child, she was going to stay in Willits to take care of us when we were old, and she kept that promise. This reading is in the main retrospective, going back over my life as a symbol of the Dharma, a Dharma that we are all in sympathy with, that life is a journey, that the spirit carries the soul in a direction that is good, at the end of which, no matter how many lives, is contentment and peace. And one of the principles, one of the precepts of that is compassion and patience and understanding. So you thought you could get away from Sunday school. Let's start with a poem called The Dharma. And in the course of reading these poems, there will be some that were actually written in this valley and these mountains. I think we've all learned, consciously or unconsciously, that there can be no goodness and no peace unless there is balance around us and gratitude for the watershed that we live in. And we stand a chance to honor that commitment. I don't know exactly in what way, but it's been threatened, and we're here, and we're not going anywhere. On the way of the Dharma, we don't get there. Hills, rocks, rivers on the way, sorrows, respites, dust, grit, anger, wounds, the breath within is also the elusive distance. Passing through a village, the inn lit late, the curtains are drawn. Warm eyes, rare welcomes, teach me to care for my longing. In the windy wastes, freedom floats upon the great emptiness. Up in the ranges, a sleeping doe, one ear inward, the other guards. The firs and pines sway together, they vanish behind the track. All the clouds of experience sink into the mountain. On the way of the Dharma, sound of a steady footfall. I wrote this next poem, Epitaph, for 15 years of labor when I'd been working as a post office worker, rural carrier for a long time. I wrote it in the North Valley, where, if some of you have seen that poster picture, that somehow the personal element dropped away and the universal element seemed to take over. How the waxing moon recedes, falling backward against the stars, and away south Scorpio slips to the sea. No more temples aimed at Antares. Egyptian dreams sleep in sand as the earth spins its swiveling helixes, and embroidery speeding right to the ends of heaven along the curve of time. Through the pine branches, clouds, smoke, translucent water answer the moon, fire mist in the ample air, to dye the sun bloody red, and down it rides, by laws so gigantic it is descended and still there. Horses blessed by being, their mouths forever open to the earth in the unmoving distances. Quail chortle in their bramble, then fold back away together to rest. Paired dragonflies sweep down the ranges to the sunken floor. Across the road I travel, the shocked dead beasts lie scattered along the way. Violated, bereft, every kind, even the elusive turkey buzzard none will touch. Lying tilted in the dry ditch grass, day after day the same until its eyes evaporated to empty holes and blistered feathers go gray. For rats to ransack by night, such light air bulk as though to say, do not touch me, I have not risen. In respect of the wild spirit, one thing I will say, that I raised every cat, deer, bird, skunk, raccoon, squirrel, fox, rabbit, shrew, off the graveled track, showed the four directions with a whispered turn, a ceremony of my own making. May you live again. Once the white heron I'd seen flying before landed to rest just within a barbed wire fence, comically looked back as I met its eyes, accepting that I sped quickly by amid the wetland world of butterflies. Then it rose aloft, laboring headlong above my path through golden meshes of star-thrown feathers of light. Another valley poem. I went outside at evening. There the purple lines of cloud and two birds speeding on the valley air, pine silhouettes on the mountain, the great fire just gone. Far off dogs bark for food, and beside me this cat I fed as a stray, gone wild, returning to have me scratch her thick shedding fur. She bites from pleasure, diving her skull against my nails, wishing never to stop, nor do I. Above our heads the mild rattle of rain on the corrugated tin. No wind, two vagabonds in the falling dark. Song of the Road at 40. The years drift toward me like leaves in a mild wind. I love the day that I can see and breathe, and the night jeweled with stars, with the moon in passage through a necklace of cloud. Ancient mercy gave this light. In summer, locusts bow, chanting to the earth as it swells and pulses with heat. After a rain, frogs by thousands lope and pause in the dark. Their choruses go on and on. Life is a perfect sound. When winter tips the undulant lands and ice patches snap into filigree, birds rise in one rush singing, aiming, en route, on the wind. Nature will carry us to our own. These rhythms cannot be chance, nor the space between when I rest by the side of the mountain road. The forest gods surround me and are kind. They abide somewhere in the trees, but I rise and freely go. When all this is done and I am no one, walk outside and look at the stars, at falling waters, at lightning far away. The beautiful is the splendor of the true. This was what I knew and all I ever wanted to know. Oh, thank you. Thank you. This next poem is a longish account of a trip to climb Matterhorn in the Eastern Sierra as an homage to Jack Kerouac and his generation, whose tradition I joined in and appreciated the concept that all suffering is one suffering. When you're born, you suffer. When you grow, you suffer. When you marry, when you age, when you die, you suffer. Don't increase the suffering. We've got enough. I got it into my head to climb this mountain because Kerouac was not successful doing it. He went with Gary Snyder, and it became the Dharma Bum's tale. 2 haiku of miles, song for the rucksack pilgrims, vagabonds, cast-outs, bohemians, who walked free of the bistros, out upon the land searching for a source. Homage to the reckless and prodigal, Lowell, Mass. At Kerouac's grave, Tijon. There was a daisy beside beer cans, left as comradely warmth. I picked the flower and tucked it in a small white envelope. No reason. Our Packard dream had been Matterhorn, the ranges that year blocked and snowbound. We'd turned instead at Pinecrest for 42 miles of tramping, pressing underfoot the slave's meek tread. Ate coho salmon in dusty trail heat. Some 4 said climb it next year. Nimble shortstop Tom, Big Mike with a song and a vow. Don, his skill and swollen knee. Myself, the wordless follower. The year flew past like an augury, promises become truer than fact. I stood among trail books and maps in a fancy warehouse. Do you have crampons and rope, the guide now said. Better go Peeler and take the southern side. Horse Creek was closed from deep snow. Crown Lake and Peeler the long way, 34 miles. I walked in the crease of giant mountains that threw up ridges, lakes, and granite peaks. Streams, roots, behemoth stone, the patient thoughts of earth. At first light, west of Barney Lake, crossing the flats and fords under high pines, their tops tipped together to mask the mountains. Suddenly, by the water, was a woman bowing her yoga morning worship. In the distance, she was raising her arms. At the sun rays rising? Lost at the fort to Crown Lake or Peeler, I heard voices. L.A. Mexicans strode up, shorts, shirtless, laughing. They shared their map. See you there. Have a good hike. Heartmen. Deep Peeler Lake was cobalt blue as crater, pulling winds giving cool. I loaned my filter. They drank and shouted, let's give Bill our map. Myself, Natty Bumpo, Pathfinder, stranger with a 50-pound pack. On back to the fork and up to Crown Lake, met a sturdy tramper who said, take mule past a huge Matterhorn canyon. He'd just come out of there. Quite a little hike, he smiled and sweated. It was early afternoon, only 10 uphill miles so far. Through Crown and Anchor Lakes among the God-throned boulders, I looked down at the Sierra as far as I could see. Up the promontory Mule Pass, a teeny climbing figure walked, smooth-faced, grim in an outback hat, making the switchbacks with no strain. I gazed at the circle of peaks with this bitter girl. Diagonally across the valley, looking blue with distance, was the fortress Matterhorn, gargantuan totems at the peak. 6.5 miles at least, she said. She traversed the saddle beside it, called Burro Pass. On either side the saddle were sentinels' presences, Twin Peaks and Finger Peaks to southeast, with a teeny swale, Burro, then separated by sheer drops, granite Matterhorn. Receding at the heights like a pyramid, the wooded valley lay far below the saw cut and points. Too late today, so down into nightfall the streams roared by me. Which way to Matterhorn? Up this trail 5 miles, grinned the woman and 2 men. Then in the next camp, standing on a rock, a Portuguese woman, the simple dignity in her hips. Take Burro, then south, you'll see the fingers. Good luck. 5 miles up the valley in pre-morning light, my car on my mind. Tomorrow's obstacle if this day waved me through. I balanced on the rock slide with a Tai Chi stick. Gravel and chunks pitched downward, gathering speed. Scouted the sheer face, the fingers speared up 1,000 feet. Nowhere to stand north or east, but on the south, the place of action. I stuck my stick in a crevice and ascended, the colossal rock fingers angling toward morning sun. This was no bounding rock to rock. It was living life and death. My mystic climber didn't think but carried me. It would take into afternoon, and Judith waited a call. I'd never make it back to camp by dusk, but I'd come for this. Here it was, the heights, the reason, and nothing was here, not even a bird. Scrambling ledge to ledge, I was saved 4 times by an old foothold, my stick by strength and speed of hand. The mystery gets closer in the mountains. When I chose wrong, the wind blasted me back. There is a salvation beyond understanding. But when I saw over the last split monolith, air, only air. The sun shone on the snow 1,000 feet down, 20 miles off the surveyed land and its fences, and far beyond this range boundary peak in Nevada, 50 miles. Burro Pass miniatured at 11,000 feet. Mine spreads out into the void of this world of mountains and winds. I buried the graveyard flower by a mossy rock. Jack, there is no end of traveling. Wind gusts took my breath. I photographed the sun-pale cliffs, then descended with my stick to the warm, wet ground. Alone in the Matterhorn at 3, bone-weary, I slept with ants a panic nearby, but rose to eat and go back the 17 miles, uphill 3 miles to Mule Pass, and down in faded light between the ranges. The moonless dark moved west as I tramped to the fork, meaning 7 miles more lit by the Great Bear. Billion suns fly south the way of the dreamer. 2 hours the flashlight shone across fords and paths until the ghosty trailer park. I'm lost among these shiny things. Youths on bicycles at the camp said everything's closed. Hey, you just off the mountain? Yeah, the voice croaked. The flashlight worked. Circled 3 times before I saw the road to Bridgeport and a mythic motel. In the bar, the hard-lipped waitress wasn't hard. She softly stepped close and spoke the truth. Nothing anywhere tonight. It's Saturday. No room at the inn, no room at 4 or 5, so it was the car back seat at the forestry station and waking early to avoid the cops. Breakfast at the only place in town. The lady asked what when I sought a mechanic for the car. Not until 8 at least, she said. It was 6. I ate and left my change, shifted the distributor, filed the points. 90% power for the steep Sonora Pass. The survival Marines at their chopper watched me speed by. I'd walked those miles on 5 hummed steps, and was the membrane of pulling song. No need to falter, the numbers don't. And what does it mean? Nothing. Just being carried along. When the mountain is close, it's boulders than rocks, and above the rocks empty air. There is no mountain, but mountain mind makes. 8 hours home to her cool living room. We're together. We're Judith, Avra, Ken. Hey, Jack, I carried you back, and I was borne on upon a blessing. The sun woman bowed and raised her arms. Thank you for your serious attention. This is some selections from my early years into the recent past. Premonition 1949, this is when I first became aware that life was mysterious. When I was the world and of it too, the roiling clouds transfixed my eye. As I stood amid the dense power, colored steel dust blue, it lit again, then exploded. Gray horses 5 miles high flew on enormous and wild-capped, racing to obey the thunderclap approaching from my other side. The parent. I can see my baby sleeping. I know how she will look dead. Hooded lids in an Egyptian head. Turn for what I cannot see. The small arm extends towards something that is past, and even so still lingers by her bed. Her bones are light, 3 weeks in our keeping. She joins and leaves the other worlds. They weave her still in a blind, sure, airy loom. But I will stay until this wall is dark. She may wake and want me in the room. Biblical Woman. I first read this at the Stepping Stone, which is where the print shop is across from the health food store. 1974. The word-filled friendships, the comings and goings, soundless beside her seated form, costuming, preparing, and comparing, frozen beside her braceleted wrist, drawn lines, known rules for battle and conquest, games before her shapely boot. She has 4 rings, the beryl pendant, rubies round as pearls, an anklet of gold links studded with 12 stones for 10 fingers and 2 temples of light. The second is diamond, 8th an emerald, with jasper, sapphire, carnelian, circles of green and blue azurite, malachite, obsidian streaked with amber, nephrite, jade, sea green from west of En-Gedi, onyx, lapis lazuli from the north, and the 9th is topaz. Ivory and gold are banded high on her arm, whose hand holds a fan of light feathers. They pay tithes of mint and anise to hear her voice in the valley of Hebron. Bdellium from wooded Carmel on her table, and agate with linen and coral nearby, garments smelling of myrrh and aloe nearby, coral and linen by her bed, that she leaves, Judith of the full gesture, to seek the mountain streams in the afternoon, and at evening, sits for hours beside the rhythmic, clear water. Another domestic poem. Gwendolyn the dog. No burrs on the floor, Gwen, tasseled with your black thick hair. The floor is clean. I swept it. Avra took you with her to town. Next time you explode your 10 pounds of energy under the garden fence, across the field, howling harmless indignation, that'll be a memory, something I'll keep for its unimportance. And your polite approach, never to interrupt, for a burr pulling, the silken ears, the delicate snout, they couldn't have been comfortable. You asked me, I groomed, you sat, saying in ways brief and sufficient. Human, you have fingers. The alert, steady eyes on mine, which are brown too, but so what? Who cares? You didn't. The way you brought the ribbed spines into reach, that was universal intelligence, Gwen. And how you opened your black lips, showing lowered teeth, remarkably like Barry Eisenberg's. All of it said, you knew I understood your thanks. The present moment, this I wrote on a trip we made. My wife wanted to shop at the secondhand stores in Ukiah. The present moment. First, the plastic barbecue chair by a door on the road curve, declaring, finally, I'm here to watch. Then the bum with butt skin showing through the back of his pants as he ambled off. Then the Mexican women floating into the Goodwill parking lot in a gold 280ZX. With the teeny god, the happy fat brown boy. Finally, the father and son doing the tandem, the latter with a little bounce in the family stride. They all said this was Ukiah, home of Masonite. All of a sudden, a Chicano couple disembarked from a Mercury Lynx and crossed the street called Maine. The lady pregnant with the third beautiful child, the others, a maiden long-haired to her waist, the boy with the little rat's tail flapping to balance archetype with modernity. All followed the future patriarch, togged out in Caltrans orange shorts, in the march to the Salvation Army store. In an afterthought of the hidden deity, a 64 Monterey materialized down the street and approached like a royal procession, its taillights predating Madonna's halter by at least 25 years. Meanwhile, a teen cyclist sped closer, braving the oncoming traffic, and she kept her eyes on mine as were mine on hers. I didn't look at her bosom until she was abreast. She seemed content with the exchange, and I was determined not to let Ukiah down. Then, oh my God, a spotless white Previa pulling into the spot up ahead. She'd been at the Goodwill and was on our trail. What has become of the middle class? Don't know. I didn't notice her until now. 123 by the battery-powered electronic miracle. Because you can't say everything at once about life in Ukiah. So like the 24-hour emergency rooms run by Adventists, whole city blocks running east and west. To manage it all in the present moment would take elevators designed by Einstein and the hand of Jesus just off the pure white hallways, hitting letters and numbers on the long carriage typewriter, hitting lightly without a pause, like a good, joyous haiku in the ears of angels outside in parked cars, with no need for air conditioning or concern with coins dropped in a meter. It shall be an Augustine town in August, city of God, Ukiah. Ah, ye Ukiah, how close you are, O black Republican shadow of the wild blinding sun, and how far, far from me, though I'm with you this moment in an old foreign car. It was a 74 Volvo. That knows one direction, back to the lost empty hills so I can listen to the dry hay grass rustling in daylight. I'm very moved by the mysteries of life, birth, marriage, and death being singular ones. And I've written commemorative poems for those I cared for when they died. This is to Hugh Hinchcliffe. Just 40 yards from here, there used to be an old soda works that he and his wife Marilyn took over when they came back from Nepal to open a bookstore called Symbols. They were good people. He died in April 1985 at around this time. April coming into spring, births planting, wedding fest. By drifting smoke we know the best, go this way while spreading leaves are small, distinct, hands of a flowing will that will not rest. Sadness and attachment and remorse are linked to funeral rooms and forms that serve. But earth is clean and the sea rises, then drops. A hungry bird grasps immaculate bone as it crops discarded flesh, saying nothing aloud, why should it? This wind, this nearly full moon never stops at the zenith or darkness or slightest bit of pale rind shadowed by the half-lit curve. Tears are nothing to the evening air, death a doorway for the good and fair. And directly across the street, as you drive out, you'd see a building, 53 San Francisco, where Violet Colvard lived. We knew her as a young teenager. She died tragically. She went to the doctor with a terrible headache, and he gave her some aspirin and sent her away, and a month later she died of a brain hemorrhage. So this is a remembrance of her when she visited us when we were building. Violet, when you were on this floor, we all had dreams of kindness. Nothing mattered more than to build right from the earth. The summer days, your young girl shyness, when I welcomed you onto the floor, and we had our ready mirth. What you up to, John? Oh, about 5'10". Your father said a lot of windows. The light is gliding in. You turned around in the space and light. You are everywhere you have been. For a while, I was writing poems to the same cadence as music, and I'd like to play one of those now. It's a remembrance of Frederick W. Locke. The song is by the jazz vibraphonist Joe Locke, and I wrote the lyric. So I'd like to play that, just to give you an idea of what it was like. I know our time is only slowing light, slowing to show us every year as time shines on us, pure and bright. May you shine here and everywhere. Just so the sun can see its light, and warm my night, my dear.
We're speeding to another night that is luminous. Luminous. That is luminous everywhere. I know time is only light, slowing to show us the year. As time shines on us pure and bright, may you shine here and everywhere. Just so the sun can see its light and warm my night, my near. We're speeding to another night that is luminous. Luminous. That is luminous. Suns shine everywhere. Suns shine. Suns shine everywhere.
As you can see, Joe Locke is a composer of great spirituality. I know we're running short of time. We must be. It seems like I've been up here an hour, but I'd like to read this. When Fred died, they had been kind to me when I was a child, true Christians, and I never forget who helps me. When he died, his wife sent me his poems, which had never been published, never been voiced, as far as I knew. And this is what I wrote when I read them. Aging papers, double-spaced, staple holes, rejection dates, carbon copies near to fade, sent me late. Language stern as stone in mind's monastery, word and line, pillar and arc, frame the eye, stand here in the passage down 5,000 years. And the cobbled roads of Caesar that slope to the verge are gone, and the carriages of Borgia, the lubricious sound of spinning, gone. The thick forests of cypress, copper smelts, birthing swords, bridles twining brooch, the oarsman's cadence, the anvil song, the stoic slave uncomplainant of his shattered arm. Laughter from the amphitheater at Knossos made drifting wavers on the wine-dark sea, now still as the gates of Tyre, as the moon's argent olive groves. All waned but word, for breath is God or sign of God, and word, shaped breath. Sanskrit, Hebrew, Greek, the scorpion Cyrillic forms, fugitive tendrils through the later lands. Over the pale and bloody ground, wild wheat now suffs a sound, and linguists cannot know they are to lead when the dream comes back around. O spare and fictive life, gods and angels obscure, we look out upon the waters, we make ourselves the metaphor. But weightless stone, the trace of sound, carries in flight unhindered, it does not drown. I'll read a few of the songs of the road that I wrote, in the course of living here, starting from the latest one, going backward. Song of the Road at 68. When you are close to death, darkness still contains a light. The horizon's half-light of the shades, suspended, floating there, the oceanic being beneath life, dimly manifesting like the shadow behind earth, mutely thrown to abide and extend the infinite cathedral of space, redeeming the temporal, another time perhaps. 2. On a sunny day, it was a Wednesday, I said goodbye, weeping, to our eldest daughter, my sight affixed to hers and hers to mine. Their car backed along the familiar rutted track. Mutely we waved. The car turned and dipped west, down to the road. Our eyes sought each other's. The car vanished at last below the bluff. Such was our wordless farewell, accepting the end of things. The gifts of her perfect honor had been delivered. Something a little more cheerful. On giving his granddaughter a book, oh, let us not be those people who give books instead of love, instead of shouting like sparrows and lions, I love you, I love you, I love us, together, here, everything that is and was to be now. All right, running out of time. Isn't that the story of our lives? I'd like to dedicate this to the memory of Lorraine Sullivan. On the way at 49. Already climbed most of the barren mountain, the top to the north, 4 miles, enough light, coming down a coyote, steady trotting right this way on the twisting ridge. 20 feet. My fear gave a warning. It didn't stop or slow. The thick, wild animal hair stood out. High ears, light eyes, without concern. I didn't leave the trail, but looked. It looked back, came on, gliding past my right side a foot away, and gone. Impeccable rules in this place, with one trail. Song of the Road at 46. We're stopping at the tavern. We have traveled all morning. Tonight there will be a place to rest. What dreams will rise, the whole journey. The coach rollicks over the stones behind my eyelids when I pause a moment and sigh. We meet here by chance. It is inevitable and good. You no longer recognize the face. Your look is wide but loving. The forests we crossed were so rich and deep, they broke blindingly into fields. Scattered farmlands there, didn't frighten the deer. The tavern master waits. He knows I won't be here long. He sees the wordless maiden, impatient to go on. I have performed my duty to escort the princess to her land. Since every mystery is true, I imagine myself king, but say nothing. She would only smile with a gentle pity anyway. I'll take her there safely in another night and day. Roads level near the sea, then turn north alone. The eyes of animals will follow me with perfect understanding. 44 years, still no wisdom. Driftwood smoothed and clean in the current. And that was at 44 years. All right. I like to read an old poem, a Chinese poem. Among the cliffs, the path up the mountain is hard to follow through the tumbled rocks. When I reach the monastery, the bats are already flying. I go to the guest room and sit on the steps. The rain is over. The banana leaves are broad. The gardenias are in bloom. The old guest master tells me there are ancient paintings on the walls. He goes and gets a light. I see they are incomparably beautiful. He spreads my bed and sweeps the mat. He serves me soup and rice. It is simple food, but nourishing. The night goes on as I lie and listen to the great peace. Insects chirp and click in the stillness. The pure moon rises over the ridge and shines in my door. At daybreak I get up alone. I saddle my horse myself and go my way. The trails are all washed out. I go up and down, picking my way through storm clouds on the mountain. Red cliffs, green waterfalls all sparkle in the morning light. I pass pines and oaks 10 men could not reach around. I cross flooded streams. My bare feet stumble on the cobbles. The water roars. My clothes whip in the wind. This is the only life where a man can find happiness. Why do I spend my days bridled like a horse with a cruel bit in his mouth? If I only had a few friends who agreed with me, we'd retire to the mountains and stay till our lives end. Han Yu, 9th century. Thank you.